Hi, love leaders. It's Dr. Shannon Roberts, your host for the Love Leading Podcast, where we discuss how to create connection in your most important relationship that God designed, bringing health and sometimes healing while deepening intimacy. Welcome to the show. Welcome, love leaders, to the Love Leading with Dr. Shannon podcast. We have a special episode coming up for you because we have two of my favorite people on this planet willing to come and just share a little bit about themselves and how God has them in this world and the lane they're in and the influence they have on this community. And so you're going to really enjoy Mike and LeAnn Ash, who are campus pastors of a really thriving, growing church in the Tampa Bay area, Grace Family Church. So welcome with me to this episode of the show, Mike and LeAnn. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here.
Yeah. So, wow. I mean, if you've listened to any of my stuff, you know I am going to start us out. I just want our community to know who you are. I want them to know where you stand and what you stand for. I mean, you guys have a long history here in the Tampa Bay area, but more so, you have such a strong, thriving marriage. So tell me a little bit about you and awesomely how you guys fell in love. What's your love story?
I guess.
I know you start.
Well, yeah. So we met. When I was 21, I moved down to Fort Myers, Florida, to be a part of a church plant, and we just started something, a movie theater down there. And then LeAnn moved to Florida to manage condo resorts down there, and we kind of met when she was visiting on vacation and became friends. And she moved down, but honestly, when she moved down, I was dating somebody else. And I actually got engaged to someone else and realized that through some friends and some influences that was not the right relationship. And so that girl and I broke up in September of that year with like Hurricane Charlie and all those things that happened. There were hurricanes on the outside and hurricanes on the inside, decided that it was time to not be engaged to that girl.
And you leaned into other influences and advice. That's awesome.
Yeah. One thing I've realized is, at least for me, I realized that I was dating people that was normal for me and kind of what I grew up in. So a lot of yelling, a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness.
I understand.
Yeah, I was attracted to the chaos. And so I had some friends lean in and say, hey, I'm not sure that you want this in your adult life. And
they could see that it wasn't healthy.
Yeah. And so they helped me to see that. And so LeAnn, so we broke up. I broke up with that girl.
You got untethered.
And then in January of the next year, LeAnn and I started dating. And really, LeAnn she's different than any girl I've ever met. She's probably the most secure person that I know, one of the most secure people. It was so different. And so I felt like pretty quickly, probably quicker for me than for her, but I knew, hey, this is something special.
Yeah, he wanted to date with the assumption we would get married. And I was like, not exactly quite ready for that. So if that is a deal breaker, then I don't know. He's like, okay, well, I'm willing to just date then.
Yeah, let's just date.
Let's just have fun. Let's get to know each other. Let's not set the bar too far down the track, right?
Yeah. But we say that, but we dated for 4.5 months and we got engaged. And then we were engaged for 4.5 months and we got married. So after 9 months, so we started dating in January. But at the time I was 25 and a pastor at a church.
And he had been engaged and knew what he didn't want and did want. And I was in a serious relationship for several years prior to that. And so we didn't want to really just date to date. Like we knew that if we were going to date, it would be with the pursuit of seeing if we were meant for each other.
So we asked hard questions. We made sure that we went with other couples and spent time with people that loved us and cared about us, that if there were red flags, we're like, let's figure out those things early. So
and especially the people that told you your previous relationship was not healthy. We're like, okay, do you see any red flags? Is this good?
Oh my gosh, you guys are saying, you're just shouting it from the mountaintops, all the things that I really try to instill with some couples that I work with, doing your work as to what you know about you and what you bring to the table, really evaluating also what you want and what you want in a partner, in a relationship, keeping the good from the past and really trying to formulate something stronger for the future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
mean-
beginning to marriage, 9 months.
Yep.
Yes. And
yep.
again, we had known each other for a couple years, but again, he was with someone else and I was attending the church, but it obviously when we had met each other the first time, it wasn't the right time. And we both had some growing up to do and learning to do, and he had to experience that. And so it's just right timing. And our families are up north. So we had our wedding up in Ohio and ended up having a big reception down here in Florida too, which was super fun.
Mhm.
So I just got to have a question before we move on. So LeAnn, were you kind of scared about marrying a pastor?
Well, that's a great question.
It's a great question. So a little nervous because the role models that we had, the wife was very involved.
Mhm.
And, at the time, like I was kind of volunteering and helping, and it was such a small church and small staff at that point in time. Like I was volunteer staff. And I wanted to be able to be all in as much as possible, but I was also working full time outside of the church. And I remember I went online looking for what that would even look like. And I ordered like this book package.
Yeah, like a bundle.
Yeah, like a bundle of like 5 or 6 books of basically how to be a pastor's wife.
Mhm.
And I think one of the
That
books,
it's such a unique lane, right?
one of the book titles was How to Be a Pastor's Wife When You Don't Play the Piano.
Oh, so true. Oh, so true.
I mean, my envisioning of because I grew up in a pretty conservative church and they
Yeah.
always play the piano and they always wear the doilies on the head. And I'm like,
Or else, at least if they didn't play the piano, they had a great voice, right?
and I'm like, I don't check any of those boxes. So I don't know what I'm going to be able to contribute or how I'm going to be able to fit that role. But I don't even think I got through half of any of those books.
And I think we were in an environment that even though the pastor's wife was very involved, they did not put that pressure on us.
No.
They very much said, hey, you find out where you are supposed to be. You're not in there. It is not a 2-for-1
No.
deal. Like there was very,
Yes.
and I would say the church we're at now has the same outlook on it. It is
Right.
very much, so we haven't been in those environments where we have felt like an incredible amount of pressure for
That's
LeAnn to take like she has taken on as a pastor's wife. Like she comes to what we call the middle service. So in between our 2 services, she comes basically, she comes to the first service, but she stays until the next service starts so that she can interact with people and do that and kind of work the lobby and hang out with people. But that was on her own. She kind of decided that on her own. And so we've gone through different seasons where she's been super involved in women's ministry. Now she's not involved at all because of the stage of our kids. She's been really involved in youth ministry. Now she's not as much.
I used to work for the church. Now I'm not. I mean, so yeah, different seasons and so that involvement, and like he said, like we've never felt the pressure from any church environment to, even though the wives may have been super involved and may have had big roles, there hasn't been that pressure. I think church is just different these days as far as like what the pastor's wife needs to be. So any season I felt supported into what that role looked like for me. And other seasons, I think the pressure just came from me as to wanting to have a bigger role or feeling like I should. But then needing to take a step back and just really be what my first ministry was this past 2 years, learning my number one ministry is to my family and letting potential church ministries get in the way of that for a little while. So that was a big lesson I learned this past year.
Tell them how you learned that, because I was on Mother's Day where LeAnn took the boys out on a date by themselves.
Yeah, well, I'll back up a little bit. So when we moved back to Tampa, so there's a whole prior story for that, but trying to figure out where to get plugged in, where I should serve and all that, and really where to find my ministry. And so I got over plugged in. So I was involved in youth ministry and women's ministry, and then also helping on Sunday mornings and also trying to work a full-time job and be at all places for the boys. So I was definitely burnt out on, and burning the candle on both ends and not really feeling like I was fully anywhere and felt like I was not doing well at life. And so just kind of praying through that season, like, Lord, what do you really want me to be involved in? What am I supposed to be doing? I just can't figure it out. I just keep doing all the things, but never really feeling satisfied and not feeling like I'm living out my calling, whatever that was at the time. So at that season, we had learned that Mike's mom was sick. And so he was visiting her in Indiana
On Mother's Day.
on Mother's Day. And so the boys and I went out for lunch. And so I asked them at lunchtime, said, how can I be a better mom? And right, our youngest, he's
How
like,
old were your boys at the time that you asked that question?
it was just last year.
12 and 14.
Yeah. So our youngest, he's like, nothing, Mom, everything's great. And then our oldest just kind of thought for a minute and he's like, I would just like you to be around more. And it was like, it was not like a stab in the heart. It was just like this instant, like God spoke to me through my son. And it was just, and I instantly also thought about this Hannah Breacher, I think that's her last name, book, where just be right where your feet are. And of just being, okay, I have been praying what my ministry is, and my ministry is my boys. That is the season that we're in right now. And I don't need to be doing all these extra things. I just need to be where they're at. And if they're home, I need to be with them. And if they're at sports, I need to be with them. And not just physically, which was a big part of it, but also mentally and physically, the energy to be a part of those things. So it was a big wake up call. So as soon as that season was over, I just kind of fizzled it all out.
Yeah, she finished the semester in groups and then pulled out of women's ministry, finished the semester with students and pulled out. And it's been great, just way more leaned in. So that's a long answer to your question.
In or out of ministry, right? It's just really finding your lane. And kudos to you, Mike, that it sounds as if you just left her with the room and space to do that.
Yeah, and I would say this about LeAnn and what I've always loved and appreciated, that for her figuring it out and working it out and just really trying to find that out. I would say that she's independent in that way. And so there isn't this, and really for me, it's hey, whatever you want to do. And there are moments where I'm like, hey, I think you should be at this. Like, I think this might be a good thing on the church side for you to be at. So I'll let her know when those things happen. I just don't think those necessarily happen as much as we think they are, or as much as they do. So that I definitely say that when there are moments you're like, hey, I think this event would be a good event for you to be at. And there are times where she goes, well, I know you think that, but here's what we have going on. And she still doesn't. And I'm like, okay, what, like it is what it is. And so it's a balance, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. And so now you guys are celebrating how many years of marriage?
It'll be 18 years in October.
Wow. And you have 2 boys, and they are currently what ages?
15 and 13. So going into 10 and 8.
You guys are in the thick of it. You are in the thick of it. I love it. And it sounds like you're really enjoying it.
We are
enjoying it. Our kids are teenagers, but, and probably maybe because they're boys, they are still super sweet. They are little men, but they are sweet, and we are, and all into sports, and we're at a lot of their stuff, but it's a fun season.
It is a fun season. We have really good boys. And again, they have their moments, which we do too, but they're really good.
Yeah. And not that you haven't already mentioned a few factors, but I always like for my community, because most of them are faith-based, and they serve at churches, and they are interacting with leadership. But it's kind of nice to know that sometimes even pastors and leadership, they're just all human. But you have challenges in your ministry, and you have unique challenges in your marriage, always being kind of in that place of supposedly leading and being looked up to. It's just a lot of hard pressure to balance authenticity, but also just realness, and but also stay pure in your connection. So how do you do that? You mentioned the word balance, Mike. What is it that you have found that has kept your marriage solid, not perfect, but solid in light of the ever-shifting climate of ministry coming out of COVID, but just in the growth of your your uniqueness in your individual passions and journey, but also just in, the work that you do. How do you keep your marriage solid?
Yeah, I would say, I would say that we are a very strategic couple. That's probably both of our personalities. And she's an Enneagram 1, I'm an Enneagram 3. Like I'm an achiever, she's kind of organized. So I would say
that works in the blend. Like you're a big visionary and she kind of maps the steps on how you're going to stay there.
We are both, and that's, she talked about getting burnt out. We are both this like driven personality type. And so if we're going to be, fault anywhere, we just overdo it, or we think we can take on too much, or we have too much on our plate, and both of us will suck it up and just keep going. Which
I think that's actually one way that we do create the balance, kind of answering a question of, he is a 3, he'll say yes to everything. Where I feel like part of my role in our family is to protect our time, protect our space, protect our energy so that we don't get to the point of burnout. And I can see the big picture of, we've already got 5 things going on this week. No, we don't need to add one more. And just protecting our family from that feeling of being burnt out, to where family is no longer, so ministry is no longer ministry. It's just, something that's busy.
And I think that we evaluate it. So for us, we've kind of asked the question, all right, how many nights with our kids do we have to be a week in order to feel like we're connected with them? How many date nights do we need to have in a month? And what I would say is every season that we evaluate and go, how are we doing? How's our family? And it helps us kind of either like rev up or rev back. And even with the seasons of ministry, there's some seasons where I'm just a little busier, the family's a little busier, and we have to, it's this constant, it's not one size fits all. Like recently, one of the things that LeAnn and I said is that, our kids are playing sports. So we are on the bleachers together 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And so she and I are together a ton, but the problem is we're together, but we're not really connecting. And I know that I've met a lot of couples that throughout the teenage years, they get to where their kids move out and they're like, hey, I don't know you. And, we're not connected. And so we said, in this season, even though we're around each other a ton, this is probably a season for us to start doing a weekly date night. So we drop our kids off at youth group, and Wednesday has just become a date night. We're not super late night people anyway, so we can do that. But we drop our kids off at youth group, and then we make Wednesdays our date night so that we have that time, just us talking and hanging out and spending time together. And we do occasional double dates.
Yeah, we try to at least, because we do want that time again in ministry, like spending time with other couples. And so we try, like, 1 week is ours, and I don't try to overschedule that. So every other week we'll potentially be hanging out with another couple. And that was actually one of the things that when, again, we were zooming out and looking at and deciding to back out of a lot of ministries, because I was involved in youth group, but Wednesday night was, I want to be with our boys, but I also want to be with you. We're not having any time with you. And so, but I don't want to take away from a night that we could be with the boys when they don't have something going on. And the only night would be Wednesday night when they're a youth group and they're already involved in something. And so that was a big, like, when he was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I was like, oh, thank you.
I love that. And what I like in that sentence, LeAnn, is I want to be with Mike. There's a lot of times when couples eventually get to my office, that want to has so shifted that they don't even know it, but they intentionally overschedule because the desire has stopped. And so I love hearing that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so date nights is for sure one of them, being consistent. And again, different seasons we've had different things.
We're in a married small group. We host one in our house. It's a big deal. And then probably the last thing I would say is that there's a book I read recently just called Mindsets. And it says that, there are really 2 mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I would say one of the things that we have tried to have throughout our marriage is really to try to focus on having a growth mindset. So when something bothers her, I'll just change it. And if something bothers me, she just change. Now, initially there may be,
he's making it seem like it's really easy.
Well, and it may end up after a 3-day fight, but as soon as the emotion drains out of that,
it's never fun to be told something.
Yeah. But that's where I would say that even through all of that, even through the tension, even through that whole idea of this is just how I am, and I'm just a guy and you're just who you are. Like, I would say that we've just said, you know what, it's part of it, but Ephesians 5:21, submit yourselves to each other
Yeah.
out of reverence for Christ. That whole idea of I'm going to prefer you over me, and both of us fighting for that. I would say that, and growing and being willing to change. I would
Yeah.
say we've changed.
Always being willing
a
to
lot.
fight for us, like
Yeah.
we're on the same team versus having.
Yes.
It definitely all sounds better. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yes, it sounds like we've just.
No, this is such a good word, because listen, we need to show up in areas that we're saying, yeah, I don't quite like this, because you're still revealing parts of who you are. We just want it to matter to our partner, right? So
Yeah.
having that growth mindset is that I can show up, and I do know it matters because we have the same goal in mind.
Yeah, and always, I think that would be important too, the communication piece, like making sure you are communicating that your goals do align. Are you pursuing the same path and moving toward that same direction, and always communicating and having clear expectations.
Mhm.
And because that's where a lot of arguments happen, or risks,
Yeah.
because there's unclear expectations.
Yeah.
And so then feelings get hurt, or bitterness just starts to build up, or whatever that looks like. And so never being willing to not talk about something.
Yeah.
Even if it's a tough topic that takes 3 or 4 different stabs at it. Thanks for being real with that. So it's been my experience. I mean, you guys have anchored a lot of the referrals that I get in your church, because I do believe Grace Family does such an effective job of being a healthy church. And so people don't feel like they can't come to their pastors and really say, we're in need, we're in challenge, and we're struggling. And I really feel like when it's a healthy church, you are the first line of responders, right? So what have you found in your church? What are the unique challenges that you have been consistently seeing with your couples?
Well, and I think some of the idea behind referring them, I think that comes out of, for me more than you, but just counseling myself. Like, I've realized there are just some things you face that once you realize I don't really know what to do and I can't control it, like you need a third party in to help navigate through that. And I think when couples get stuck, so when they get stuck in a situation and they just can't seem to get out of it, I think one of the best things to break up the log jam is to have a third party who can zoom out, who honestly, and this is what I love about counseling, so what I love about you, Shannon, is you couldn't care more, but you couldn't care less. Like you're, and legally you can't say anything. So that idea of into the process is so good.
Yeah,
And
that's well put.
and I think for couples, I think what happens is that everybody essentially is supposed to start off as a team, but eventually it's like this gravitational pull towards protecting yourself. And instead of you against the world, it becomes you against each other.
Yes.
And I think as soon as it becomes that of now you're trying to win, it's almost like, I think the illustration we talked about this, and I said it's almost like you're trying to sink their ship by drilling holes in the bottom of the ship without realizing that you're on the same ship. And so
you're going to go down too.
Yeah. And so it's
a great illustration.
And so it's that idea of you guys are you're trying to get that side of the boat. I'm trying to get this side of the boat. Well, it's the same boat, and you guys should be trying to figure out how to sail through the water in the best way. So when you get to that place where, and it seems like when you get there, it's so hard to get unstuck. And so doing even what the 2-day program with you and some of the things that people can do, it just gets them unstuck. And it's so necessary for any forward growth and to repair the ship. And then to begin to see it differently. We're on the same team. We're fighting together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that you're exactly right. A lot of the couples that come in initially, to your point, LeAnn, too, is we're just not on the same page. It doesn't seem like that we can get a work through in our communication. We're all logged up. And that is the number one complaint that I have been seeing. And the more things we add to our plate and the more stressors that are in our lives that we have to navigate and we don't have a work through, only compiles it. And so I do think that's a really big challenge with couples, is trying to stay on top of all the plates in the air, but we're not working as a team.
Right. Yeah. Just going through different directions. And I think we were talking about this is just, the comparison trap of, whether it's another couple and they've got it all together, or, you know, a relationship or things, or,
Right.
you know, just seeing something that even may not even be reality, because social media would kind of do that. It only shows, you know, one side to things.
Yeah.
And then thinking that that's the way that things should be for you and your spouse or your family, and that kind of disrupting things too.
I so agree. What I love about Grace Family is they really do a great job at just coming around and providing just wraparound kind of intentionality around marriages specifically to this community and environment that we're talking to today. Tell me a little bit about what your church provides and you know, how do you go about knowing the pulse of what is needed?
So yeah, so they meet with the pastor first,
Mhm.
kind of talk through things. Hopefully they can take that initiative, and then, you know, better what happens after that.
Yeah, because for us, we will, if you get to a place where, okay, I think you guys just need a conversation or two, some of our pastors will do that. But one of the best advice I got as a pastor was, don't take anyone, don't walk with anyone down a path that you can't find the end to. So in other words, if you're not trained to get them all the way, then what will happen is you can take them to second base, but if you can't get them all the way to home plate, what's going to happen is that you are going to help them a little bit, but emotionally they're going to go in with you, and you're going to go in with this couple, but then you're going to leave them at second base, and the chances of them emotionally going in with someone else is so much less. And so it was, so if you can't help them, then you need to refer them. So if it's hey, you just need to stop, you need to quit being stupid and change it. If it's something small, then deal with it. But if it's something big, then you need to refer them. So for us, you know, we have like a marriage intensive small groups that we have for couples that are going through some hard things. We got premarital stuff, but really we do a lot of referring, and we've kind of gone through it. And I think, Shannon, honestly, talking to you, you know, when you talk about your program and some of the things you do, that for couples, just doing a weekly marriage counseling, like people need an intensive where if they're stuck or if they're struggling, they need something a little more intense to help them. And so for me, that's where I try to push people, sell them on the investment side of it and how big of a deal it is.
Yeah.
I think for couples that if they really want to grow and change, they need an intense version to help them get out of where they're at. So if they find themselves there, that's where I think an intensive is so good for them to be able to go, and it really just, it gives them a chance to almost restart and work through a whole bunch of stuff and then into a regular rhythm.
Yeah, because I really feel like my calling and my passion is just an arm of discipleship of the church that specializes in more remediation of difficulties and challenges in marriages. And whereas, you know, you as the church, the body of Christ, who God designed marriage anyway, really are there to prop up and enhance and enrich marriages. So you guys have is it Thursday night marriage builders?
Yeah. So we do a lot of, we have a lot of small groups. So we call it home builders, where
Home builders,
tonight that you can come in. And so it's a 20-minute teaching and then 40 minutes of discussion around tables. And
Amazing.
then for LeAnn and I, we have throughout our whole marriage, we've been in a marriage small group, like pretty consistently. There've been, 6-month periods where we haven't. But I would say being in a community of people who it gets you to consistently every week talk about your marriage, which you don't, then you won't. And it gets you to talk about your marriage, and it puts you in a room or in a group with people moving in a direction that you want to go. And the power of having 8 people all trying to get better, all trying to have good marriages, all trying to work on their stuff, and who will call you on your stuff when you don't. It's
true
so,
accountability.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And so trying to get I think everyone should be in community, because I think it's in community that we thrive in community. And so we have a lot of environments to try to set up that. Some are more, some people meet in homes, they have marriage groups in homes.
Right.
We meet at our campuses. So we really try to, that's a big push for us. We right now across our whole church, I think we have around like 70% of adults in small groups. And that is
Wow, really? Now, to our church community, how many campuses wide are you guys now? 7, 8?
7 campuses. Yeah.
Seven. So when you say that number, 70% of your church attenders over across 7 campuses are in a small community. That's huge.
Yeah.
It is big.
Yeah,
We
and
also
that's-
have a fair or a marriage conference coming up in a month.
Yep.
So-
August 18th and 19th, we'll do a marriage conference. It's in Lutz, Florida. So up
Tell
on
me
Van-
more about that for my community in case they want to.
So
get
the
involved.
so it is I think it's a Friday night,
Saturday
Saturday.
Uh-huh.
Jimmy and Irene Rollins, who are an incredible couple, do a lot of stuff on marriage. It's August 18th and 19th. And so it really is going to be a great experience to come. And same thing, that a marriage conference, it's the same thing for us. It puts us in a room for 2 days talking about marriage, and it just gives us so many things to talk about. And it's a shot in the arm, honestly, to help us with things. It's not the intensive that you do where you can work through stuff, but it's a shot in the arm, gives you things to talk about, gives you some momentum, and it just helps.
Yeah. And with that, I mean, like provides conversation that you wouldn't, and in a safe
And
environment.
vocabulary too.
And vocabulary,
Yeah.
yes, which that alongside of attending a marriage conference, also reading books. And
Yep.
so, in our marriage groups, as well as on our own, we've read a variety of books that have been a part of our now language
Yeah.
and context that have definitely helped us
Mhm.
in marriage. Some big ones, the 5 love languages, definitely. We
Staple.
read that many
Staple.
times.
Staple, yeah.
Staple
Yeah.
for sure. And then the for men only, for women only are big ones. We're doing that in our small group right now. Again, they can be
Okay, Shanti Felton, yeah.
and then the DNA of relationships,
Gary Smalley,
Mhm.
Meaning of Marriage,
Meaning of
Tim
Marriage.
Keller, Tim and Kathy Keller.
and then relationships by Less and Less the Parrots. I've
Yeah.
read them. Yeah. So
And
all,
that in and of itself is a mindset of growth too, that, there's never a place that you can say, oh, I got it all. I know it all. It was a one-time thing, one and done. Now we're lifetime partners. No, it's like we're consistently revisiting, we're consistently having more conversation, we're consistently learning of one another, and even moving and adjusting and growing ourselves to become more safe and secure partners for each other.
Yeah, I think, one of our goals is that when our kids move out, that we want to throw 2 parties. We want
Yes,
to throw a party for them to say goodbye, and then we want to throw a party because we can be together alone. And so some of what we're doing is like, we really want to like each other. We want to be around each other. And again, it's easy to say that, and it's easy to say some of this on a podcast like this. It's easy to answer like it's all simple and all easy, but like we work through stuff and we fight through stuff and we argue through stuff and we'll go 3 days in a fight sometimes, and we'll do some of that. But it's for me, I'll tell couples, hey, always fight to the end. So it may take you 3 days, but just don't let the fight end before you're done with it, because a lot of times you stop fighting just to alleviate the tension, but you never really end a fight. And so then it kind of builds over time. And so yeah, I would say we try to do that and go through that, and it's not always easy, and sometimes, yeah, it's
I'd
a
say
little
one of the
scary.
biggest things that has helped us work through some things that we just are wrestling with and can't get out necessarily in person, or we do have a disagreement, is the app called Marco Polo.
oh, tell us more.
It's
Oh my
phenomenal.
gosh.
And so it's basically like just an app that you can send video messages to.
It's so simple.
And it'll send you an alert like when you have a message.
Oh,
And
nice.
and so basically, so we just have back and forth Marco Polos that he'll be like, hey, I sent you a Marco, and he'll just, sometimes it's just he's just processing about everything about the day, which I appreciate, because again, I'm a detail, I want to know everything that happens, and he'll forget all about it, like someone's pregnant, or this is happening, or we're moving to Iowa, whatever. So he just likes to, it just helps me. But then some of it is, hey, the other night when this happened, I really want to process through that, and some of it be like,
Okay.
so it gives me time to like, not in the moment, like shut them down, or just gives me some time to process through it and think about it before I reply or say something I don't want to, or whatever it is. And him also knowing like I need to process through sometimes, like if I have to change directions of a certain plan, he'll be like, hey, what did you think about potentially doing this?
It's a great way to get to
Think
step
about
20.
it. And my first response would be like, no. And then that would cause a fight. But then otherwise it'd be like, okay, think about it. And, but this is all like in separate areas of the city.
I feel like Marco Polo, it really is like a secret like weapon we have. Like it gets us to step 20 in a conversation so that when we talk about it, we've worked through all of that. Like, hey, I really think we should do this, or hey, what about this? And man, it just helps. It also, for me as a guy, and this is part of my personality, I think, is an Enneagram 3. Like I can be sad in a moment and then move past it and forget that I was ever sad. I can be mad in a moment, move past it. And some of it is life is great because one thing about Enneagram 3, we're always changing our reality to seem like everything's a win. So this is amazing. This is great. So when I find that I have an emotion that's sideways or messed up, so if I think about it, I'll on Marco Polo go, hey, and I'm just messed up right now about something. Let me tell you where I'm stressed out. And when she listens to it, and she's like, hey, I listen to your Marco. I'm like, oh yeah, I was feeling that way earlier. But it makes her feel so good. Like the fact that I'm processing emotionally with her. I can't really call her in the middle of the day and do it. It's been great.
Yeah, because I mean, that was something that we have learned over years. There's been seasons where he hasn't processed with me emotionally, and I didn't even know a thing was wrong or
right. By the end of the day, he's already processed
here. Yeah, it had been a process. And so that's something, through a certain season, like we learned just how important that is for him to process that with me so that he doesn't need to protect me from that. I actually feel less protected when he doesn't open up to me.
Yes.
So that provided that opportunity, because like he said, he may forget all about it in the moment, but yet it was a real emotion and it was important for him to process with me.
Oh my gosh, that's a good word, because I think a lot of times couples will wait till the end of the day, and let's be honest, by the end of the day, sometimes we don't finish at the same time, or we are only giving each other crumbs of energy because we're done, we're toasted.
I don't even care anymore. Great.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's such a good word. I'm going to check that out. Thank you for sharing that with me. Oh my gosh, you guys, you're so great to be so open and honest. And I love the fact that you said, yeah, we fight, because I teach couples to normalize protesting and fighting as a part of the process. It's how we fight that becomes problematic. And if they get to a place where they can get to a reconnection or a work through, that is the point of it, right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this is so great. So you have this marriage conference coming up. You have these really great opportunities for people to plug in if they want to continue to live in community and try to do life and stay, on the right path. That's so fantastic. How would someone that's looking for this type of community or this type of church, how would you suggest they get started?
Yeah, like specifically Grace or a church like this?
Oh, specifically Grace. I mean, you guys are 7 campus wide, right? Or at least the DNA of other churches outside.
There's lots of different locations.
Yeah, so our website's gfcflorida.com.
Nice.
And then that kind of leads you to that as far as all the different locations and tells you where they're at. So we're all around Tampa Bay. It's kind of our area. So if you're in Tampa Bay area, it's easy to find. And then it'll tell you service times, which change based on the campus and where we're at. And then same thing, GFC Florida on Instagram will lead you there and kind of guide you through that. And then
so come check us out on a Sunday, because that's where, you kind of see the heart and the passion and the people, and just how it really is such an authentic community. And we're always just saying family is our middle name, literally and figuratively, but because that's the type of environment we want people to feel that it is, that you can walk in with anything and everything that you've got, and you will not be judged, you will be accepted, and we'll be so glad that you're there. And then just from that, we always provide opportunities, and text this number, we'll send you more information, whatever information you want. We have the app that helps you get plugged in. We have a new here table that you literally just walk up and ask questions, and people know what to say, and if not, they know who to ask. So great kids.
You two are specifically in the South Tampa campus, correct? Yeah.
South Tampa, all the good food down here. So.
Yeah, good food, good fun. Oh, awesome. Oh, and so LeAnn, I want to put a plug in for you because you are also outside of the ministry lane that you have been in, and this really emphasis on serving your family well. You are also a personal trainer or a nutritionist coach. I mean, tell me more.
Yeah. So I'm a personal trainer, nutrition coach. So I'm currently working for a company called Faster Way to Fat Loss. Its headquarters is in Clearwater. It's a fairly young company, about 5 years old, but the CEO, Amanda Trust, is just phenomenal. And she is a Christian and loves Jesus and is not shy about that. And it truly is just something I've been passionate about for a while, just helping people get healthy. Kind of our family mission statement is we strive to be healthy and positive every way, every day, and to help others do the same. And so that's really kind of my motto and purpose as I'm living out that calling in that environment. And I do view it as my ministry because I do believe that to be healthy, you have to be holistically healthy. So WHOLISTICALLY, because you have to be all of you.
Yes.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, all of those things in order to be truly healthy, to be truly whole, to be able to truly live out the calling that God has for you. And that may start with, just taking your physical health and by the reins and doing something about it, and helping people with their nutrition and their fitness is bigger than just that. We work
It impacts who we are mentally, who we are spiritually. And you guys are the representatives of my two kind of biggest emphasis, because when I work with women, it's how to live abundantly and exceedingly mind, body, spirit. So I love the fact that whether it's couples, I can, refer to, your programming at the beginning or end of counseling and know that it's a great bridge. But also this kind of unique kind of lane that you find yourself in, LeAnn, that people, and especially women, also need, as well as they are doing their restorative and recovery journey as well. It's so nice to know that that's a referral that I can make to you.
Yeah.
And if anyone's out there listening and you are in the Tampa Bay area and you want to work with LeAnn, how do they get in touch with you, LeAnn?
Actually, it's digital, so anyone, anywhere can work or
then shout it from the mountaintops.
I know, right? So it's digital fitness and nutrition. And so
What's the website?
Right. Well, it's faster way to fat loss. So it's a lot of words, but and so you could get connected that way, or you could reach out to me on Instagram, which is just LeAnn Marie Ash. And then we take people through a new client like boot camp, trying to learn what the fundamentals are. And this is all just real things. There's no gimmicks, there's no supplements you have to take. It's all just lifestyle change, mental habit changes, and so that you can live the rest of your life in the best way possible, so that you can glorify God and be the best that you can with those around you. So, yes, I would say the best way to probably, send me an Instagram message or just go directly to the website to find out more information about it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And if you're listening on a podcast and you can't see LeAnn's face as she's talking about this, as she just exudes light as she's talking. So I will include all of those links in the show notes for everyone to be able to have. And this is one last question as we're wrapping up tonight. And I thank you so much for your time. And I didn't tell you this was the question because I want it to be impromptu, but thinking back on a big challenge time in your relationship, what was the one thing that you would say saved that time period and kept you connected? What did you do? What was the experience? What was the rhythm? What was it that you can offer to my community as encouragement for getting through a tough time?
So I would say probably the toughest time is we were about 8 years in. The church plant that we were a part of was growing, a couple thousand people. We were coaching churches. I was traveling a bunch. We went on vacation as a family, went up to LeAnn's family in Ohio, sat on a bed and she said, I feel like a single mom.
Ooh.
And I think there are two things. One, her speaking up and saying, this isn't okay. And then it was, we just made all the changes. And I think that sometimes it's kind of a, no, keep going. No, it's like,
he was riding high on the mountain, like serving God and doing great things. And I was trying to be a really good pastor's wife and, hold him up to do all these great things, but it was wearing.
So I would say if to your community, if you're dying, you got to talk to your spouse. You got to throw the flag. You got to let them know, hey, this isn't working. And then if you're told that, my encouragement is make the changes you need to make to fix it. Do whatever it takes. The whole idea of you get stuck in a certain way of doing things and you're not willing to change. Listen, this is our lives. We get one of these lives and hopefully one marriage and maybe, whatever marriage you're in, and you want to make it amazing. And the way to do that is to constantly grow and change. Getting stuck anywhere is not going to help. And so I just came back and just basically canceled all my travel for a while and said, well, I'm not doing any of it. And we just said for this season, we're just going to be close. And then from then on, we've been way more strategic with our schedule and with our lives. And so that the willingness to speak up and the willingness to change and grow, I think are so essential in a healthy marriage.
I think that their phrase it, doing whatever it takes to save your marriage, save your family, and
not just save it,
survive,
make it awesome,
but to thrive in it. We don't want to just drudge through it. Like we want it to be amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good word. Doing whatever it takes. All right, guys, thank you for your time. I so appreciate it. And thank you for the good word for the community that's out there that's really trying to make it and are doing everything possible. This is a good word. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, thank you.